Navigating through the energies of New Earth is not an easy process and can become extremely overwhelming at times. As we all ascend into higher frequencies, we're all being guided to embrace our own unique divine pathway, a pathway created in the vibration of love. Join Vibe Nation radio host, international psychic medium Carrie Turcotte, as she guides her listeners to rediscover themselves by accessing the keys of knowledge that already exist within. Each week's show is divinely orchestrated to intertwine with the universal energies, allowing the listeners to go deeper within and understand the message being shared even greater. When you live in the frequency of love, there is no competition, so Carrie will be joined regularly by fellow soul family members who will bring forth wisdom and knowledge she knows should be shared on a global level. At the end of each show, Carrie will tap into the energies of the listeners to see what message Spirit wants to share with all those listening in for the upcoming week. If you really want to get to know who you truly are, come and join us now on Vibe Nation Radio, here on the IOM Radio Network.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Vibe Nation Radio. And today on the show, I have a very dear special friend and a soul brother, David Mills, and he is an education visionary. And he's joining us this evening all the way from the UK. So it is now 8 o'clock, I believe there. Is that correct, David?
It is indeed.
Welcome to the show. I am so excited today to be talking about children leading change in education. It's something that so many people are noticing needs to be done on this planet.
Thank you, Carrie. It's great to be here. Great to connect with you. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
And I just want, before we get into this whole education visionary, I really want people to know just a little bit more about you, David, because you're also a professional singer and a recording artist, are you not?
Yes, I am. That's right.
So you've got a lot of creative juice going through you, do you, my friend?
A fair bit, yes, I would agree with that.
That makes you such a beautiful educator as well, my friend. So please, I want to really just start the show off by saying, from your perspective, David, what is the issue with the current school system and what is taking place?
Well, a lot of people justify the school system. They say it needs to be there because it ensures equality of opportunity. From my perspective, that actually is not what it achieves at all. It doesn't ensure equality of opportunity. What it does is it monopolizes the distribution of opportunity, and that's a very different thing. So the issue, from my perspective, is the monopoly that school has over education. If you walk up to the average person on the street and you say the word education, what does education mean to you? They will turn around often and immediately associate the word education with the word school, as if they're synonymous terms. But the school paradigm, the school approach, is what I describe as an outside-in model. It's about distribution and delivery of a package. So the children are viewed very much as consumers of this knowledge. Mm-hmm. And this outside-in perspective has given rise to an outside-in society. And when I say that, what I mean is it's an approach to education which leads us to grow up as adults and to be continually looking for answers outside ourselves. Not just answers, not just guidance, but also love, meaning, purpose, fulfillment. We're encouraged to look for all of these things outside of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that, for me, is the biggest issue. And the monopoly that the school has over education, which is propagating this outside-in approach to living and being on this planet, needs to be challenged. So, yeah, that's the biggest issue from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, and for those who are listening in, David actually has experience in the educational system.
Yes.
So I do want you to know that it's not that he's just come out and started to envision this. He's been part of it, and he saw what was going on, and especially with the students itself, like the questions they were asking you and things they were asking you, that you were realizing that they were being put into a box.
Yes, very much so. I was a school maths teacher and also did some drama for 8 years. And what eventually led me out of the school system, and I do describe it as a box. I like that metaphor of the box. What led me out of the box was the children themselves, because I listened to the questions. And there are increasing numbers of children now who, although they're physically present in the school classrooms, they are mentally, emotionally, and spiritually elsewhere, because they don't feel that the educational packages that are being delivered to them are actually relevant to their lives. Yes. I love a quote from the education speaker Mark Prensky, who likens this situation to Federal Express. He says, "You can have the best delivery system in the world, but if no one is home to receive the package, it doesn't much matter." And it's so true. There are so many children, increasing numbers. I would estimate millions, if not hundreds of thousands.
Oh, millions. I'd probably say billions, my friend. Considering I have one of them living in my home,
Sure.
And, my son is 17 and he's almost out of the system, but he is an indigo, for those that are listening. And he is following his dreams because he's into horticulture and he wants to work with trees and plants, and he has the ability to communicate with plants. So he uses his ability. I'm actually a medium and communicate with loved ones on the other side, but my son communicates with plants. So he has this big thing about trees. Yeah. And he's questioning all the time, like, why am I going to learn this? Like, when am I ever going to use this in life? What is the purpose of this? Like 24/7. And you can see that loving side in the indigos, but that rebel side that the indigos have is really starting to come out now within the school system. Because I don't just see it within him. I see it with all the kids that are around and questioning, like, why are we doing this? What is the purpose of this? I want to do this. I don't want to do this. Why are they telling me I have to do this? And it is becoming a big issue out there.
Very much so. And that's what, as I said, led me to step out of the box in which the school system exists because of these questions. Questions such as, I was known as Mr. Mills, of course, in the system. Mr. Mills, why do I have to learn Pythagoras' theorem? When am I going to need this in real life? Why do I need to solve a pair of simultaneous equations? Why do I have to study Shakespeare? Why do I have to put my hand up and ask your permission to use the toilet? Why do I have to wear a school uniform? What's that got to do with my learning? Why this? Why that? And these questions really, really got me thinking. And I started asking my own questions and encouraging more questions from them. And the more questions they posed, the more questions that arose within me, the more I came to realize was that a system of education that I was contributing to actually makes no sense whatsoever in the context of the 21st century world that we are now living in. Because the school system is fundamentally a 19th century model. It was a creation of the industrial age. We've moved beyond the industrial era into the information age. And what people really need to realize is that we're actually now transitioning out of the information age and into the innovation age, which is all about creativity. It makes no sense whatsoever to continue adhering to a 19th century model of education in a 21st century innovation age. It's like trying to run Education 1.0 software in a Society 3.0 operating system. It's not going to work. It's obsolete technology, and we need to create something different, something new. And that's where my focus lies. So just in case anybody is thinking, I'm not about attacking the school system as such, because I accepted it's there and it's going to continue to be there for the foreseeable future. And hand on heart, I know so many truly passionate, hardworking and inspirational teachers who are doing an amazing job within the system. And goodness me, where would we be without those incredible souls who do such an amazing job? But my point is, looking into the future, we have to start creating alternatives to the school system, parallel solutions outside the entrenched system. And that's where my focus lies. And I think it's the most certainly one of the most exciting opportunities in the history of life on this planet. It's a massive, massive opportunity and something that I feel excited to be contributing towards.
That's so beautiful, David. And I do want to get into the labels that most children have nowadays in the school system, but we are coming into a commercial in a moment. So let's just touch on it briefly before we go into commercial so we can get right into it when we get back.
Sure.
So, I know myself that my son was labeled. And it's when the parent doesn't understand why the child is being labeled, they need to realize that there is good out of that, but there's also a lot of people get labeled and they get help, but others don't get the help that they need. So it's really interesting how the system works and who's labeled an IEP and who's labeled ADD and who's labeled ADHD. And the labels are a big thing, are they not, in the system?
I mean, they're just huge. And again, it was one of the reasons that drove me out of the system, is because I found it truly heartbreaking to observe the number of children whose self-esteem was being crushed to smithereens by these labels. I understand that in the context of the school system and the prevailing society, because of the way things are, children need these labels, these so-called special educational needs labels, to ensure that they get the help and the support that they need. But with the future for education, the vision that I see, we won't have any need for any of these labels, because every single child will be treated as a unique individual. And that's the thing that's missing right now, because the school system, it's an outside-in model. It's about an externally imposed delivery of an educational package. It doesn't and can't, at the moment, reach children and treat them each as individuals.
Very nice, David. So we're going to go to commercial, and when we get back, we'll get deeper into this. I'm so looking forward to this.
Likewise.
See you shortly.
See you shortly.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
What if living didn't have to be so serious?
What if you could move beyond your problems with greater confidence and ease than you've ever imagined?
Throw your labels out the window and join the Irreverent Therapist for practical tips and a very different way of approaching the changes you would like to create.
Marilyn Bradford
and Pam Hodling
have empowered hundreds of people to come out of self-judgment, quit looking to experts, and begin to create the lives they desire.
Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Irreverent Therapist Show.
Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Live with medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences, to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
Welcome back to Vibe Nation Radio, and today my special guest is David Mills, who's an education visionary. And before we went to commercial, we started talking about how so many of the children out there have labels connected to them. So, David, do we want to go a little bit further with this, my friend?
Yes, I'd love to talk a bit more about this. The two labels with which I would say I probably have the most experience would be attention deficit disorder or attention deficit with hyperactivity disorder and dyslexia. I've also done a little bit of work with children carrying the label autism. But if I can just focus on the first two initially, hand on heart, in 16 years of working with children, I have yet to meet a single child who has an attention problem. And believe me, I have worked with some of the supposedly worst, most extreme cases. I don't understand this label at all. The question to be asking yourself, and my route in to a child's world who has this so-called learning disorder, is what is the child paying attention to? And when you tune into that, oh my goodness, it is truly mind-blowing. The profound messages and the wisdom that pours out of these children. One particular young lad comes to mind. His name was Ryan. I worked with him while I was a school teacher. This boy was universally despised by all his teachers. His standardized test scores in English were the lowest of the low. I think half the teachers didn't think he could even read or write. He was a real behavior problem, constantly getting into trouble. And as pastoral coordinator at the time, I was responsible for working with him one-to-one, and he also happened to be in my maths class. Well, this young lad, I asked him, what are you passionate about, Ryan? What do you enjoy doing? What do you love doing? And it turned out his passion was for the supernatural. He loved talking about ghosts. Now, unfortunately, ghosts and the supernatural isn't covered on the school curriculum. So here we have a perfect example of a child with a passion, with an interest that is not being catered for because of the limitations of this externally imposed curriculum that's being determined by and is being delivered by adults. So what I would do is during my maths class, we'd make a little deal. If he got through the work, then he could tell a ghost story at the end of the session. And he came alive when he did this. It was his opportunity to be in the spotlight and get a bit of positive attention from his peers. Anyway, one day, a few weeks down the line, I had another chat with Ryan, and he actually came up to me and he said, Mr. Mills, have you ever done any meditation? And I said, well, no, I haven't actually. I hadn't at the time. He said, I sit at home, and when it's raining, I watch the rain pouring down this big glass door, and the pattern of the rain puts me into a trance. And I was like, whoa, Ryan, this is unbelievable. Where did you learn about this? He then proceeded to inform me that he'd been to the library and taken a book out on Buddhist meditation. I was so totally blown away by this because, as I said, most of us believed this boy couldn't read and he was such a nuisance in school. And yet he'd actually, off his own back, voluntarily gone to the library and taken a book out on Buddhist meditation. The heartbreaking thing about this story is that Ryan was permanently excluded from the school the next week. And I know that the only adult in that school who had any knowledge of his interest in the supernatural and in meditation was me. And there was nothing I could do. So that for me is a perfect example of a child with a passion which we could have tapped into and used. You know, if you want him to write about something, let him write about the supernatural, about ghost stories. Let him write about his interest in meditation. Opportunity squandered, lost. Mm-hmm. The good news is 5 years later, he connected with me on Facebook, and I actually took the opportunity to apologise on behalf of the school system for the way that we treated him and it, from my perspective, failed him as a child, to which he was eternally grateful to me. So it was kind of a happy ending, and he seems to be doing okay in life now. But that's one example that always sticks in my mind of the limitations of following a prescribed curriculum rather than focusing on what each individual child is interested in.
Yes, and with the children nowadays, we know that the indigos are the ones that are in the high school and being the rebels and trying to break down the system. But then we also have the crystal children and the rainbow and the diamond that are now coming into play. So, and you and I both know that so many of these children have the ability to communicate with spirit, that they do go into the higher realms. And this is something, the story you just said, is something that we do need to address. And I believe that's why a lot of people as well are now homeschooling or getting involved in online schooling programs so that the children can learn according to who they are. And
Absolutely.
I know, like, with me knowing the personality traits, I raised Sean. I knew Sean was a green-blue. I know he's very spiritual, and I knew he had to know why to everything.
Yeah.
So I catered my raising of Sean to who he was as a person. Now, if he was raised by somebody else who was in get him into sports, get him into hockey, this and that, I knew that's not where he was going to thrive.
Sure.
Because he would go in and have a good time, but then after a while be like, no, I'd rather go home and figure something out. That's why he's so good with the plants. And
Yes.
he's been labeled. And you know what? The only way for him to really get in tune with who he is run his plants. You know,
Yeah.
he doesn't have to have that ADD around him when he's with his plants because he's in his own zone.
Absolutely.
And he's doing what he loves to do, and he wants to help the world with trees. He's like, trees is his specialty. There's too many trees leaving this planet. I got to help with the tree system.
Right.
So, to see that with these children coming into play, that this will affect the younger ones, and that's where the systems are going to have to be shifted to be able to do meditation instead of recess and things like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. It's crucial. And I always say that at the root of any child's passion, and some people say to me, David, I didn't know what my passions were as a child, but here's my response to that. Regardless of what your child is paying attention to, and I'm going to mention an example of a boy with autism in a moment in this regard, regardless of how seemingly insignificant it may be, I mean, in your son's case, he's got a clear passion there for trees. But sometimes a child will show an interest in something which we as an adult will look at and say, well, that doesn't make any sense. They're not going to be able to make a life out of that. But I promise you, at the root, if you follow the breadcrumbs that interest, that initial interest opens up, follow the path, it will lead to the child's purpose, their reason for being here on this planet.
Absolutely.
So the example I wanted to use was a boy who a boy with autism. He was mute, so he didn't talk, and he was blessed with an unconditionally loving mother who bent over backwards to do everything in her power to support him. She refused to put him into school despite, relentless pressure from the local education authorities, because she knew that the most supportive environment for him would be with her in the home. And I was called in to work to help put together an educational program for this boy. And I'll be honest, for the first month, I really struggled, because no matter what I tried to do, he just didn't want to play ball. It was like if he got even the slightest whiff that I was trying to, that I had an agenda for what he was quote unquote supposed to be doing, he would just close the door and shut down. There was no way in. So I went back to my usual question, what are you passionate about? Now, I couldn't ask him because he wasn't able to verbally communicate with me the answer, but I was able to observe him, and he had a passionate interest in, and yeah, don't laugh, DVD covers. Okay? He would walk over to the window where his mum had a bookshelf of cartoon DVDs. He would take the DVD out, and he would study the DVD case for 10, 15-minute intervals, and he would be stroking his hand along the plastic casing of the DVD and in a state of joy. So I figured, okay, this is his interest. So I walked up to the window and I thought, I'm going to enter this boy's world. I picked up a DVD and I closed my eyes and I began to stroke the DVD. And then I opened my eyes and I began to tune in to the different colours and the words. And what that young lad did, 12-year-old boy he was he opened me up to, he awakened senses that I wasn't used to tapping into. And I could somehow just understand the pleasure and the comfort he was getting from looking at these DVD covers. it was a breakthrough moment because everything changed in our relationship from that point. What happened, Carrie, was I went over and sat down on a chair, and in my mind, I said to myself, thank you, angels, for that. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. I said that in my mind, and within seconds, Tom was his name, Tom ran over to me, jumped onto my lap and gave me a hug. And it changed everything. That was the first time he'd really connected with me. So two things came out of that. First of all, I acknowledged his interest, regardless of whether or not it seemed important to me. It was important to him. So that was my route into his world. And secondly, I can't prove it, but I know intuitively in my heart, he heard me. He heard me have that thought. Thank you, angels. And the interesting thing was, whenever I was thinking, because when I first had my spiritual awakening, it was very much the angels who woke me up. I was having white feathers manifesting all over the place. So whenever I was around Tom, I would have little conversations in my head with him, and I would know that he was hearing what I was saying because he was telepathic. He knew what I was saying. And that's why I say these children, they represent the next step in the evolution of the human species. They are tapping into dimensions that we're not even aware of. And that's why it's so important, rather than labeling them and suppressing them and telling them that they're abnormal and crushing their self-esteem, we listen. We take the time to listen. We tune into what's actually going on inside of them, and we follow their lead. These children are the way showers. These children are our teachers. It's time for us to stop trying to impose our agendas on children and to honor and celebrate their differences, their gifts, their inherent beauty and magnificence, and to follow their lead. They are leading us back into the Garden of Eden. They are leading us into the new earth.
Beautiful. And now we're going to head into that funky music.
Yay!
Raise our vibrations and go to commercial. So we'll be back shortly, my friends, and we'll carry on with this conversation.
Speak to you soon.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Cielito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know, I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Vibe Nation Radio. And for those who are just tuning in, I have today's special guest, David Mills, who's an education visionary. And before we just went to commercial break, we were talking about labels. And before we get into the next topic that I want to talk about, I just want to mention to so many people out there that over my spiritual journey myself, I work with a lot of so-called special needs children. And I know personally that those children that are labeled that way, they do have a very strong connection with source energy. And I've always said that if you can stop and listen and communicate with them through your energy, you'll have a beautiful friendship created there, because they are here to help shift the planet and to realize that, you know, they came down here with these so-called special needs, but in fact, they're already in tune with the higher frequencies. Absolutely. That they're guiding the way to bring us there.
Beautiful.
So I just wanted to share that. And now, David, you've created something very special, and it's called EduSpire. And can you just mention to the listeners where you get that name and what it's all about?
Sure. So I mentioned how the school system is an outside-in model. What I firmly believe we need is an inside-out approach to education, which, as I said, is about tapping into the child's innate wisdom, passion, intelligence, creativity, etc. So EduSpire, the word is a combination of educate and inspire. So the idea is, with EduSpire, is that rather than children being educated, we can inspire them to educate themselves. EduSpire. It's an approach to education that is inspired with spirit, because I look at the school system and I see, particularly with the increasing emphasis on data, children being turned into data entries on spreadsheets, it's devoid of soul, it's devoid of spirit. Mm-hmm. So the idea behind EduSpire is not, first of all, I need to stress, I'm not about creating a new system of education. We have enough systems. EduSpire, I've proposed, it's what I call a paradigm of education, a new paradigm of education. So what I'm talking about there by the word paradigm is it's a whole new conceptual framework within which to view not just learning and education, but children, childhood, and life itself. So it's about shifting our perspective on all of those things. It starts from the premise that every child is a unique individual with unique gifts and passions to share with the world. And therefore, if the child is unique, they have a unique educational path to follow. And that's why I stress this thing about it's not a new system, because I wholeheartedly reject this idea that there is one single system that's appropriate for every child. We see with the school system, it simply isn't meeting the needs of all children growing up. So that's why I avoid the word system. It's a paradigm, it's a conceptual framework for the creation of alternatives to school outside the box in which the school exists. Yes. Again, let me stress why it has to be outside. There's a lot of people that get a bit frustrated sometimes with me because they're, why can't you use your passion, David, they say to me, to fix the school system? In my opinion, and I'm going to stick rigidly to this, the school system is not broken. It isn't broken. It's obsolete. Attempting to fix the school system could be compared to repairing a video cassette recorder with the intention of playing a DVD in it. Or an even better metaphor would be polishing a gramophone with the intention of connecting it to iTunes. With the best will in the world, you cannot convert an outside-in model into an inside-out model. They're two diametrically opposed perspectives. Therefore, we need to focus on creating not just one approach or one system, but a multitude of alternatives to school outside the box, outside the entrenched system. That's what the EduSpire paradigm is designed to support, the creation of a multitude of alternatives. And at the heart of the EduSpire paradigm are 12 presuppositions, which I've put forward. They're the result of my own personal experience working with children over the past 16 years. And number one, which is the most important, is the following. Every child is a unique, divine spark of unlimited creative potential. Every child without exception. I believe it was Albert Einstein who said, every child is born a genius. I agree. I think every child is born a genius. Do we currently realize that genius? Do we see that genius in our children? No, we don't, because we're too busy trying to fill their heads with facts and information and process them through this machine that takes them in as one number and spits them out the other end as another number. We're too obsessed with data and numbers. Children aren't numbers. You can't be efficient with human beings. You can be efficient with machines. You can be efficient with paperwork. But people, human beings, they require effectiveness. And effectiveness is all about the quality of relationships. The most important relationship is the relationship you have with yourself. Because your relationship with yourself, the quality of that relationship determines the quality of the relationship with the people around you. So the purpose of the EduSpire paradigm and the EduSpire presuppositions is to inspire children to go inside themselves, to work on improving that relationship with their inner self, their inner teacher, or their intuition. And that in turn will lead to healthy, harmonious relationships with the people around them. And that to me is how we go about creating the new earth. Eckhart Tolle wrote a fabulous book, A New Earth. This is what he's talking about. And the people riding the crest of the wave of the shift in consciousness that's going to create this new earth are children, because they're more in tune with who they are at the core of their being. So it goes back to what I was saying earlier. If we can listen and follow their lead, we won't go astray. It's us adults that have created this distorted and dysfunctional world that we currently live in. You know,
I see it. I think about, I'm laughing at you as I'm talking about it, because I'm thinking about back in high school myself, where, you know, you had to take this many this many that. These were mandatory subjects. And like you said, like I was into astrology and I was into, you know, mediumship and all that back then, but I started to shut it down when I got into high school because it wasn't there. And I just think about now, like if I had said, so what are your classes this thing? Well, this semester I'm taking astrology and I'm taking a crystal course and I'm taking a how to tap into my mediumship 101. Like, you know, this is, again, we call these kind of like Harry Potter schools, but in actual fact, this is the truth. That I kind of think that if I was able to, because, you know, I've always been dabbling with tarot and, you know, talking to angels and everything since I was a little kid, but it shut down when I really got into high school because I was put into that box. Yeah. And I kind of think that if I was able to go to school and learn the things that I was passionate about, which was this stuff, I just wonder, where would I be today?
Sure.
You know, so I totally agree with what you're saying here and how, you know, things that are not labeled as part of the school system, we need to shift that to realize that these younger children, the rainbow children, the crystal, especially the diamond grid, because they're like complete pure source energy.
Yes.
So, you know, and they're going to start landing into the system, you know, 5 to 10 years from now. However, I think a lot of those children may go through this new system, like you're saying, where it's homeschooling a little bit more than putting people into the system right now. Yeah,
I agree. And the homeschool or home education community is growing daily. There's so many now parents choosing to unplug their children from the matrix.
Yes.
Unplug them from the school system. Because they see that the school system just isn't meeting the needs of their children. Mm-hmm. So that's a huge community that I'm currently tapping into. I have lots of friends in the home education community. Mm-hmm. What I'm talking about, I should say, you know, some people could argue there's nothing new in what I'm saying. No, I'm not actually introducing anything new. I'm just speaking the truth. That's the way I look at it. Mm-hmm. I'm speaking the truth. And there are plenty of initiatives and revolutionary approaches to education taking place. I spent a bit of time at a Sudbury school in Illinois, and that's a school where children are free to follow their own interests, their own passions, but within the framework of a fully participatory democracy. I find that a truly inspirational alternative to the conventional traditional school system. We've got the forest schools, which I wholeheartedly back. I think that's amazing. Getting kids away from their smartphones and computer screens and out into nature is a huge part of what I stand for. Indeed, is it appropriate now,
yes,
Harry, to mention
absolutely.
what I'm currently doing?
Go ahead and mention it, my dear.
So, I'm not somebody that just sits here and talks the talk. I think it's important to walk your talk as well. So it's important to emphasize that I'm a living, breathing example of everything that I'm saying. So I'm currently working with two close friends of mine at the Clophill Centre, which is a 14-acre farm in Bedfordshire here in the UK. And we're in the process of creating what we call a natural learning space in which we help to cultivate their connection with the natural world. And the reason we do that is because we believe we are a part of nature. What the school system does in some respects is it's separated us from nature, and it's seen as something. It makes me laugh, actually. One of the questions I got most from kids when they were in the classes, they'd be looking out the window, the sun shining, and saying, "Can we go outside today?" And I'd have to respond, "I'm really sorry, no, we've got to stay here in the classroom because we've got to get through the curriculum." But nature, being out in nature, that's the most natural environment in which to connect with your own natural self. So we've created a program called Roots. It's initially, it's baby steps, one step at a time. In many respects, it's very similar to a forest school approach. So we're doing a 6-week pilot program. We've just reached week 4. This is our 4th week. Small group of kids, 12 to 15, but it's going really, really well. And as I say, it's all about immersing the children in nature and helping them to strengthen the connection with their own inner voices, with their own innate wisdom and intelligence. And although there's a structure that we're putting in place, we play games, we sit around the fire, we talk, we roast marshmallows, toast marshmallows. The kids are building fires, wilderness survival, this kind of thing. It's very much about what are you interested in, kids? What would you like to learn? And we're having a ball, an absolute ball. We're having a great time.
And here comes the music, so I hope you're playing music too, David.
I am. I'm bopping away here.
We'll be back after this next commercial.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hey ladies, do you want to have that good hair day feeling all the time? Gentlemen, would you want your special someone to have that glow, letting you know she's feeling completely satisfied? This feeling and that glow can be yours by embracing your sexual power. So join me, Rachel Kenley, award-winning romance author, on the O-Spot. The O-Spot will guide you to that peak with guest interviews, book discussions, and conversations on the thrills of sexual empowerment. Put the zing back in your life. Come up and see me sometime on the O-Spot, live on Hump Day at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Vibe Nation Radio, where today my special guest is David Mills. And before we get into the final conversation we're going to have today, I want to talk about the weekly message that Spirit asked me to share with you during the commercial break. So, as we all know, the shows always go in tune with the weekly energies so that you can digest them a little bit deeper. And the messages will not change. It's going to deal with exactly what we've been talking about. So, what I'm getting from Spirit is that really a lot of people didn't realize that there's more to the educational system than they than what's just there. Like David said, that it's not a broken system. It's shifting the system out and turning it into a new system. And the universe is saying that when your vibrations are triggered by what's going on because your child's being labeled or this is happening or that is happening, the universe is saying, focus on the fact that your children is exactly where they need to be at this moment of time, and kind of take the blinders off and know that the universe is working with us behind the scenes. But so many of us are conforming to it's just the way it is and there's nothing we can do about it. And just say, no, it is what it is. However, don't put the energy into it being broken. Put the energy into where you see it being shifted. So that when I think about my son who's coming out of high school, so it's very different from those whose children are just going into the system. But I've said to Sean for years that you can't fight the system. You just need to go with the flow of the system and accept it for what it is and focus on your power, your energy. So the universe is saying really give the time to your children and focus with them. Find their passion, like David was saying, because this will allow you to start to go down this brand new road that we're all building for this new system for the children. And each one of us plays a part of the vibrations of what's happening. So let go of the brokenness and see the new that is coming and how this is going to change, the education system forever. So there's my message for the week, David.
Cold shivers up and down my spine. I love it. Beautiful, beautiful message. And so, so, so true. Let's not focus on what's wrong with the school system. Let's focus on what we can create instead. This is exciting. It's a major, major opportunity. It really is. Love it.
Beautiful. Now, I know there was something else you wanted to talk about with dyslexia before we end the show.
Earlier, I mentioned ADD and dyslexia, which is the two quote-unquote learning differences that I'm most used to working with. I just wanted to say dyslexia is so misunderstood. 99% of the children that I work with on a one-to-one basis through my confidence coaching practice has this so-called dyslexia. It is not a disorder. It is not a disorder. It is a visual learning preference. These children have a profound capacity for the manipulation of mental imagery. Their imaginations are immense. To me, these children diagnosed with dyslexia, they are the visionary pioneers. And again, it's another example of us just not recognizing the gifts to humanity that they truly are. Mm. Dyslexia is a gift. It is a gift.
Yes.
So I didn't say that earlier, and it's something that I feel particularly passionate about.
Well, that makes me feel good because I was diagnosed with dyslexia back in the days when I was in the school system.
And again, in all my years of working with children with this so-called disorder, I'm not meaning to blow my own trumpet here, but I've yet to meet a child with dyslexia who cannot spell parallelogram, not just forwards, but backwards as well, within 2 minutes of meeting me. And it's not because I'm a miracle worker, it's because I teach them a visual technique. Schools are very much obsessed with phonics. That's seen as the way of teaching to read. Mm-hmm. Phonics is all about auditory. What's happening when you teach a visual child, phonics is the information goes, and I mean quite literally, in one ear and out the other, because they learn visually. You have to teach them visually.
That explains why I was the way I was, and I was never at school. I was always out. I was like always skipping school because I just didn't get it. And I was taking classes like dance and, drama just because I didn't want to be in classes that were by book. That just wasn't me.
Yeah, weren't feeding your spirit. They weren't.
Yeah. Exactly. And if I'd known I was a medium back then, that would have explained everything to me. So now, just before we end, I know, David, you have a very important message that you wanted to share with all the parents that are listening in today. Yes. And just to let people know, again, you can find David at silentlifecoach.com, or you can actually go to my website, carrieturcott.com, and click on Vibe Nation Radio, and his information is there for him to reach him directly. So let's see what you have to say, my friend, for all the beautiful parents listening in right now.
Okay, if you are a parent of a child who has been made to feel in any way that they are abnormal, or they've been given a label whether that be ADD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, Asperger's, autism, oppositional defiance disorder, that's one of my favourites, and you feel that this has had a harmful effect on their self-esteem, can I give you this message from my heart? Your children are perfect and beautiful just as they are. The key to opening these children's passions and purpose, unlocking their passion and purpose here on this planet, is to unconditionally accept them just as they are. When I work with children on a one-to-one basis, some people look at what I'm doing and they say, wow, it's like magic. I don't understand what you're doing, David. I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing. I unconditionally accept the child exactly as I find them. I disregard the label. The label isn't important. Children don't need labels. They want to be acknowledged. They want to be honoured. They want to be accepted just as they are. Rather than labelling their differences, let's celebrate their differences. They are perfect and they are beautiful just the way they are.
Beautiful. And I know that's touching your heart and soul. I can hear it in your voice, but I'm feeling it too, David. I know how passionate you are about this. And I know so many that are listening in today are also very passionate about this. There are many that aren't even parents, but they're being pulled to help the children of this world. And for you coming forward today and taking that leap of faith, I mean, kudos to you, my friend. Okay, it takes a lot to come forward and say what you just said.
Well, thank you. And that's what it's all about. I'm here to serve present and future generations of children.
That's so beautiful, because we're all here to help humanity, my friend, shift into the higher vibrations here on Gaia. And it starts with the children. Again, I have a rebel.
Yeah, they're the people.
Well, I have a rebel indigo in my home right now, said. And he keeps me in check about why the system is what he calls broken. So I'm going to have to shift that with him and let him listen to the show, David, since you know him very well. And, please know that these energies, this is a week as well, that the energies are focusing on new and taking that masculine and feminine energy to create, success in new beliefs, and having a new belief system is where we're going. So use the energy wisely this week and really focus on what David had to say. And know that next week, the energies are shifting once again. And I am actually going to have on a very special guest, Paul Avganeros, and he's a Grammy winner. And he is an artist and a producer. And he's also an engineer. And I'm so looking forward to those that are going to tune in next week, that Paul and I are actually going to use his Grammy-winning song, Grace, to do a deep meditation with all of you while I channel from the Embassy of Light. So that's going to be a very cool show. So thank you so much, David, for coming on. I really, really appreciate this. And I know that you'll be back again. Once we get to that next level, we'll bring you back on and we can go deeper into this, because I really feel you have a message that needs to be shared with all.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for interviewing me, and thank you to all the listeners who've taken the time to listen to what I had to say. Much appreciated.
Well, thank you. And again, to find David, just go to his personal website at silentlifecoach.com and hear and read all about him. And, you might even hear a song or two that he's created. Again, there's more to you, David, than just working with the children. The music is a big part of who you are.
It sure is. I'm a big American songbook vocalist. That's my area of specialism. So if you're into your American songbook, Frank Sinatra style music, my album is on iTunes. David Mills, Zing is the title. Zing with a exclamation mark.
Zing, zing. Getting those vibrations getting the
absolutely moving. Zing went the strings of my heart. Beautiful.
Any last words, my friend?
Not really. Just thank you once again. If you want to learn more about the EduSpire paradigm, please check out my blog, eduspire.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at EduSpired. All the links are on my website, which, Carrie, you've already shared, silentlifecoach.com. So you'll find all you need to know about me at that website.
Beautiful. And for those that are in the Toronto area, do know that I am doing a gallery reading on May 11th. And this can be found on my website under public events. Most of my events are actually private. So this is nice to have a public one happening. And it's going to happen right after Mother's Day. So it's going to be on 5/11. So I assume the spirits will be very high that evening. So if you're in the area, please check out my website. Tickets are going really fast. I don't know how many are left. Because we know that most people who come to these events bring somebody with them. So, and it being Mother's Day a couple of days earlier, I feel there's going to be a lot of motherly love coming into that room and getting ready for a beautiful evening with Spirit. So again, thank you all for joining into Vibe Nation Radio. I had a beautiful, beautiful day today, learning more about the education and how children are going to lead the way with my very special guest, David Mills. You still there, David?
I'm still here.
So one more thing, again, what's the name of your new school, Roots?
It's called Roots. We don't have a website up or anything at the moment, as I say, 'cause it's early days. There is a little bit of information about Roots on my Facebook page, David Mills Visionary, if you want to just read a little bit more about that. But I'm, if you want to contact me directly, I'm more than happy to. In fact, I love connecting with people who are on my wavelength with education, because having spent the best part of 10 years in the wilderness like a hermit, it is wonderful that I'm now starting to connect with people who are actually on my wavelength and don't look at me like I have 3 heads when I speak.
Beautiful. So there's that music again. So we've run out of time, and I look forward to having you back, David, very soon, so we can go deeper into this.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful week, my friends. And I look forward to seeing you next week on Vibe Nation Radio. Have a beautiful one.